So shade densities, there you can see a 47%. All these companies have different percentages on these things, so I couldn't give firm numbers. Terry's using a 40% shade. If you want to just reduce on the amount of hard rains coming in or hail, then we would want to go to a less dense fabric in that 30% range. Like Terry said, cost was a big deal on his, so that's another consideration. Keep in mind, however, it's really dependent upon what that crop is that we're going to grow in there. So if we're going to use those cool crops, they can probably get by with a little less light than if we're trying to do some peppers and tomatoes underneath of this. So we'd want less dense fabric on there. I would not go over a 60% shading fabric, otherwise you're going to really reduce the amount of growth on there. Even though the plants are tall, there may be just less growth in there, they're just stretched, and so we'll see productivity go down, so keep that in mind. Fabric, color, fastening, what else do we have?
You said that the woven was better with the wiggle wire than
I'll clarify that. Dr.
Question, Stacy? What was her question?
Right, that's what I was going to just say. Dr. Hodges just asked the question about which fabric was best for using wiggle wire, and my recommendation would be the knitted one. That's the one that doesn't tear very easily. The woven one is the one that holds its shape the best, but it can't tolerate that wiggle wire because it will start tearing it. I've used it before. You just got to remember it's going to add extra damage potential on that one. So yeah, use the wiggle wire only if you're going to use that knitted fabric. Okay, so we talked about using wiggle wire, we talked about using grommets, and the least expensive way is to use, it's under a variety of trade names, but there's a shark bite or griff clips or snap clips or some of the names. They're basically like Velcro would be, where it's got teeth on one side and a receiver on the other, and they literally bite through the fabric and snap together. I've used them before. They're fairly inexpensive. You just want to make sure you get a really good one, and before you buy them, make sure you contact the company to get a sample, because the griff clips that I've gotten, some of those would not stay together, so we don't want them to fail. But you can use a bungee cord or twine or whatnot to hold your fabric. But you don't, what you can do is you can just buy what's called pull and cut shade, and you'll see it through a lot of vendors. It's called pull and cut, and it's pre-manufactured a certain length. They just pull it off the roll and they cut it to whatever length you request. Okay, so you can use these griff clips and manufacture your own shading system fairly inexpensively. Something I didn't talk about is if you have a wooden structure, you could also use your wood 1x2s and nail them or screw them on, but once again, that's going to deteriorate fabric, but it is one of the least expensive ways to do it. I think at that point you see 5 companies I've listed there. There's a bunch more out there. Some of these are more affordable than others, but I just thought I'd give you a listing of a few suppliers that has some of this. And if anybody has any questions now, you're welcome to ask me. Otherwise, we'll let Terry give you a tour of what he's got, and I'd be glad to answer any questions as we go along. Casey, do you have something you want to say?
Might also want to add that this tour is very informal, so I want you guys to have an interactive dialogue if questions come up. Don't be afraid to ask them. It's best to ask them when they're fresh on your mind. If you have a question, it's likely that others next to you would have that same type of question, so feel free to have this be an open dialogue of people asking questions and answering.